Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Change Officer Podcast GITEX series, where we will be introducing you to the companies, their leaders and ideas that are shaping the future of this region. Today with me I have Abdallah Abu-Sheikh, who is a serial entrepreneur, investor, who's been around for a while now and he's plugged into the ecosystem. And I'm really happy to have you here, man.
Thank you, Vuk. Very happy to be with you.
Awesome. What do you think about GITEX so far?
I'm actually taken by how crowded the place is. I think GITEX continues to be a great platform for a lot of people from different walks of the industry to get together and connect. So I'm very happy to be here this year. I'm very happy to continue seeing it thriving.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And if you look at when did you move to the region? How long ago?
About 5-6 years ago.
5-6 years ago, and only 5-6 years ago, if you look at the GITEX, especially GITEX Future Stars, and the difference that you see now is like amazing.
No, definitely. I think the whole region, or maybe the UAE as a country, and maybe the region as a whole, the pace at which things move is what we call hyper growth.
Exactly.
We continue to see hyper growth. Hopefully we continue to see this for a long time to come.
Sure. You've been involved in a lot of things. One of the startups that you're currently running is Rizek. Then you're involved in VCs. You're an active investor. When you look at the current scene, especially if you look around and see so many startups, especially these ones at the early stage, what do you feel about it? How do you see it?
It makes me very excited. So definitely at a very basic level, or at a bird's eye view, innovation breeds innovation, right? So when you see any big company or any billion dollar company emerge from anywhere, you will find that many other feeder companies grow into it. And that will breed more companies and more people, more talent, and so on and so forth. So at a very high level, without diving into the technicalities, I think it's always great to see more and more people driving into the system or stepping into the VC or into the startup ecosystem. That drives a lot more talent, a lot more competition, and it makes it much healthier overall.
You've successfully built and exited a couple of businesses. You probably failed miserably a lot of times. They taught you good lessons. You share with me some. Maybe we're going to have a longer discussion when you're going to disclose those as well.
But
what I wanted to ask you, like, there is a lot of startups out there, and I can bet that each of these booths over there believe they're the next, let's not say unicorn, but successful business,
yep.
Right? What is that most of them are doing that you find a better way to do it and learn your lesson and did it your way that show you good results?
Okay, so I agree with you. Everybody out there thinks they're the next unicorn or success story, but maybe we disagree on that, but what we can agree upon is that all of them are going to be a successful experiment or a successful step towards a better quality startup ecosystem. Now, what I think that most people in the region or in general in the innovation industry confuse invention and innovation. And most people try and invent when unnecessary. The biggest, I feel, reason of failure for most startups is over-inventing. If you look at the region, you look at the past successes, be it Kareem or Souk or any of what you want to call the unicorns of the region, there were not really a lot of invention happening. Nobody invented anything. It was just a lot of innovation, localization, and working on proven concepts. Maybe here, that's what a lot of people confuse. And a lot of people, that's the first reason, I think. The second reason is a lot of people underestimate the difficulty of execution. It's very easy to think, and it's very easy to hire consultants to make you glamorous PowerPoints and TAM studies and all of that, and everybody tells themselves the story that the market size is 100 billion. If we only capture 0.5%,
theory,
we'll make 100 million. I've told that lie too many times myself that I stopped believing it. It doesn't work like this. People really, especially in this region, underestimate the hecticness of operation and execution, and this might be the main two reasons why I've seen startups here disappear So yeah, that would be my.
And while we were preparing for the conversation, we spoke about 0 to 1 and 1 to 100,
Yeah.
right? 0 to 1 being the actual innovation, but 0 to 1 also being probably one of the every phase of the life cycle of a company is difficult in its own way. But building it from 0 to 1, establishing the grounds is something that is very challenging. You're
Yes.
getting into an unknown. You need to validate,
Yes.
proof, etc. From your experience, what is the guidebook for 0 to 1ing?
Okay, so there are two. I remember the question you asked me. There are two kinds of people in the world, I feel, or in my world. There are 0 to 1 people, and those are people who are good at making something happen out of nothing. And there are a very different set of people who are 1 to 100 kinds of people, and those are the people that take you from first order to order number 1 million, or they take you from first revenue to $1 billion and so on. In here, people do not respect the difference between those two people. And this is why you find people, whether it is coming from a family business mentality or from a real estate oil kind of driven mentality, that the person who founded would want to keep pushing and keep driving every tiny detail of the business until the end. And most often they drive it into the ground instead of driving it anywhere else. I feel I categorize a lot more with the 0 to 1 people. That for me is simpler, but 1 to 100 is a lot of intricacies that are much, much more operational and takes a lot more of a different kind of person. Now, 0 to 1 is not what you said. 0 to 1 is not innovation, it's invention.
It's invention, yeah.
It's Genesis, right? It's the point of creation. There was nothing, now we have something. There was no business, now we have a business. There were no orders, now we have orders. That kind of thinking. 1 to 100 is how do we do more of the same? How do we replicate?
Scale.
That's success. Scale. And scale
Which
is
can be
difficult.
equally difficult challenge.
It's not equally difficult. It's most of the time more difficult.
More difficult.
Because inventing is something, but making sure your invention reaches where it needs to be is something else. And that's why if you look at any scientist, you'd find that they have maybe 1,000 patents, but maybe one of them was commercialized.
Exactly.
And that's they're both as equally important. But yeah, that's my takeaway on.
We look at the market. There's been explosion of VCs over the previous 5 years, let's say. All right, VCs are usually focused on 1 to 100. All right, they're looking for someone who did the 0 to 1,
yes,
get some traction, all
and
right, validate it.
Yeah.
So they want to now turn on the engines, give them the resources, and explode it, launch it to a unicorn, sell it, and that's it. What about 0 to 1? What kind of support do you see in the region for 0 to 1 companies? All of these booths that we see around here who are in 0 to 1ing.
Now, all of those booths that you see around, they're probably not one that is 0 to 1ing, right? They're probably all trying to go. 0 to 1 happens only once in every industry, right? So Facebook was not a 0 to 1 moment. Facebook was a 1 to 100 moment, because before Facebook, a social network existed in some sense. Uber was a 0 to 1 moment. Google was a 0 to 1 moment. And that happens only once in an industry, and that's that. And then everybody else tries to copy it in different ways. Google is the perfect example of a company that managed to take 0 to 1,000, right? So they they invented
millions.
something that never existed before, and they kept growing it in a way where it is the only thing of its sort right now. Uber is more of that kind. Unfortunately, in the region, people's best bet is to localize an existing successful product, which is what most people are doing. So there's not a lot of 0 to 1. By default, that means investors here do not understand what 0 to 1 is. So even if they see it, they will not know what it is.
And it's difficult to benchmark it, right?
They wouldn't know, right? And the 0 to 1 opportunities are not companies that go from, to $1 billion valuation. Those are companies that look at something like Tesla,
sure,
something like Google, something like Apple, Amazon. Those are the $1 trillion league. And that's very difficult for regional investors to tap into. But since we're on that topic of regional VCs and so on, regional VCs are built in a way where they are more in a hurry to make money than their investments, which is absurd. You are investing in a VC, you're expecting that you're sitting down on that money anywhere between 3 and 5 years, you're not going to see anything. And 95% of the time, you're not going to see anything. VCs here operate more as PEs, right? We give you the money now, we will start auditing you every month, and when are you going to make profit? When are you going to break even? Come on, break even, break even, break even.
Or break.
Or break. So until the founder either gives up, let's go of the VC, or the company becomes more of a steady income plot. And I'm not talking about everyone, but maybe the 98%.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned impact investing, and that's a topic that is becoming more relevant, and people are starting to realize that. How did you discover the idea of impact investing? How did you decide to look for the impact? Something happened?
Something happened, yes. Something did happen. How did I discover impact investing? I feel, for me at least, and this is, I discovered it out of luxury, right? I had made enough money for me to start thinking of what do I want to invest in now? Or I started being picky. I went out of the, I need to invest in anything that makes money, into I'm going to be choosy or picky about what am I going to invest into. And that's where impact investing came in.
Did it turn as an important ingredient for investing, as something that influenced the success formula?
Yes, for me at least. So something that happened, or the trigger of that was, in another life I used to lead a renewable energy business, and it occurred to me at one of our projects that we are taking people who never had electricity before into having electricity in their homes and subsequently having internet. And that kid sitting somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa that never saw a light before, now having access to the internet, is a complete tragic shift in what they could become in the future. And that triggered something in me that said, okay, there could be a lot more of those moments, right? There could be a lot more of this dollar spent that has a lot more of indirect impact as opposed to IRR or return on money. Did it become part of the success formula is a difficult question. I don't know if I'm successful. I don't know if I can claim that, but at least for me, it became something that is just as important to look at. We look at the balance sheet and we look at the number of people impacted by the business. So if we look at Rizek, we measure things like number of heroes, a number of suppliers, a number of businesses on the platform, and how much money they make as opposed to how much money we make. And that makes me at least very proud of seeing those businesses that used to make no money turn into $1 million or $1 million dirham business in a month or 2 months or so on. That registers a lot with me at least.
Amazing. Yeah. You just briefly slipped just before the conversation. You spoke to one of your mentors, right? And that mentor is someone that I admire a lot as well. So I'm going to ask you one question that is on the back of the book that that individual wrote, right? So the book Ray Dalio and his book Principles. And you know all of them probably by now. What are yours, couple of your principles that you stick to on a personal and on a business level?
I'd stick to the business level of things. I feel on a business level, I'm a fundamentalist when it comes to impact. Are we going to put money in something that's not going to impact anybody else's life except for us? Or are our teams, our peoples, consumers, and everybody that's going to be touched by whatever we built going to remember it for a long time? That's maybe a very strong impact that I have. I really don't believe in cutting corners or in that cutting people out of things is smart, which is, if anybody is listening out of the region, I think a lot of people have been lied to, and they told you that it is smart to become a smart ass and start cutting people out of things. Just like you see in the, what do you call it? The Social Network movie, like the guy just abandoned all of his friends and cut everybody out of the deal. That's not cool. That's not right, and that's not actually a good recollection of history. So maybe a principle of mine is to make sure that everybody you shake hands with benefits just as much as you do, or being fair is maybe a short way of putting it.
I think that's strong and important to spread the word around it.
Yeah, that's a couple.
Abdallah, thanks a lot for stopping by.
Thank you, man. Great to have you.
It was really amazing, and I do hope that people will listen and hear some of the message that you share, but we need to speak more. I think there's a lot more to say.
Would love to. Great being with you, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Same here. Take care.